My dinkies.
All right. Um, Welcome, everyone. Special session today on the 3024 mentoring program. Um, as you know, and as sort of a regular visitor of these sessions, the program discusses many different aspects of being an artist. We often talk about the technical side of things, how music making works. Sometimes we also talk about the world around us, our community that we are a part of, and the scene that we are a part of, and also the wider industry. But I feel like we talk not enough about personal and artistic development, if you want to call it that. And I figured we sort of make some changes to sort of highlight that part of sort of personal growth a little bit more. And I have a special guest today who knows a lot about that. And I'm very, very happy to welcome Amelia Ideh to the call. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. I'm good. It's so nice to meet you. Well, thank you for having me.
Nice. I'm super happy, to finally sort of make this work. It feels like we spent some time, aligning calendars and things like that to make it work. But we are here. Um, you have sort of been working in and as part of the music industry for a very long time. I wanted to sort of ask you also how you sort of got involved in it in the first place, because we both sort of played or were at Deviation a long, long time ago. Is that kind of where your sort of music life started, or was it much earlier than that?
I had a strange journey into music. I have a degree in contemporary dance.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's because I can't sing or play on any instruments, but I really love music. And then when I left university, I realized that I did not want to work in dance. I sort of started discovering the industry. I was like, oh no, this would not make me very happy. If I were trying to become a choreographer at that time, it's 25 years ago.
Hmm.
And so or no, 20 odd years ago. And so I started working in the arts and I was like, well, what can I learn instead and still work in the arts? So I started working at venues, first in marketing and fundraising, which has stood me in good stead because I still use those skills all the time now,
Hmm.
at a venue called the Roundhouse
Oh
in
yeah.
London. And I was part of the team that reopened that venue and we raised a lot of money and then had all these amazing young people coming through. And then I left there and I was at a couple of other venues. But when I was at one in North London called Bernie Grant Arts Centre, I started blogging about music. Josie Rebel actually came in and we were just chatting and she said, oh, I just started a blog. And I was like, what's that? And because I didn't know what it was, I was like, I want to do that. That sounds fun. And
Hmm.
so I started blogging about music. And from there, it was a really different time. And record labels started reaching out to me saying, do you want to do some marketing work for us? And the first one I worked with was Matthew Herbert's record label, Accidental Records. And I was a huge fan and had been writing about them, and so I worked there for 3 years. But alongside this, I was partying all the time because I
Hmm.
love to dance.
Yeah.
And I started working on a friend's club night, and the promoter at the time on Deviation, Layla, was leaving, and she said, Amelia, since you're doing this other night, do you want to come take over as a promoter on Deviation? And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. So I was doing that for maybe a year. And that's how I met lots of people in electronic music.
Hmm.
And well, that and Accidental and various other labels that I was sort of connected with and just being part of the scene. But I went on to do loads of different jobs in the music industry. I've been a manager, I've done radio plugging, I did PR very briefly, and I promoted events in London and New York and Croatia and various other things. And after a while, I sort of realized I couldn't do just music industry. And so I went back into working in the sort of performing arts sector and
Mhm.
did a cultural leadership program and moved from London to Brussels. And then I moved from Brussels to Barcelona, which is where I've been for the past 5 years. And I would say I'm now music industry adjacent
Yeah.
a lot of the time. I don't work in it. I spent 3 years at Bandcamp most recently. I left like a year and a bit ago. But that didn't feel like the music industry, I have to say. It felt like a tool used by the music industry, and we were talking with people in music, but it didn't feel the same way as it did when you're working in a label or you're promoting events or you're managing an artist. And so that was a lot of fun and I learned a lot. But yeah, I would say I probably wouldn't go back into the music industry proper at this point. I feel like I've done that and now I'm learning new things.
So you would
Was
say
that too long of an answer?
no,
Sorry.
no, no, no. That's perfect. So would you say sort of when you talk about the music industry, you would say labels, marketing, PR, and that kind of thing? And so, how would you sort of place yourself sort of outside of the music industry or adjacent to the music industry?
Right now, I don't deliver anything.
Right.
And before, when I was in the industry, I was delivering an event or I was delivering a marketing strategy and doing all of the work behind
Okay.
that strategy. Right now, I just do consulting. So
Yeah.
if people want advice or ideas, that kind of thing, they'll bring me in, but I don't deliver stuff. And that helps because it's a tough industry to work in forever. I think for me, I need breaks.
Yes.
So and so I'd say that's why I would say I'm not in it, and also because the education part of it, which I've always done, is the thing I'm most excited about at the
Yeah.
moment and the most passionate about, and I feel like that's my future really, or
Yeah.
for the next few years. We'll see what happens, but yeah.
And it's way more fun, the education.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. It
It is.
is.
Um, Tell me about Bandcamp because that was not just sort of a recent project that you've done that was really big, but it also has kind of to do with what you do now, right?
Yeah. So a friend of mine has worked at Bandcamp for a long time, Ali Galani,
Oh
and
yeah.
he's running you could call it the outreach team. And I said to him, "Are you really happy there?" And he was like, "Yeah, I am actually." And I said, "Okay, next time a good job comes up, tell me and I'll apply." And I did apply and I got shortlisted and decided to pull out because it wasn't the job for me. And I said, "Can I pitch you an idea instead?" Which felt mad to do at the time because I really wanted to work there. But I was like, no, 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 I don't want to work there doing the wrong job. That seems like folly. So I pitched them an idea for an artist education platform that I had had for a really long time. And I had to keep pitching, had to like you sort of start at a certain point and work your way up
Hmm.
until you get a green light from the top. And yeah, I kind of wrote my own job description and wrote my own job, which is that doesn't really happen there. That's not a thing, but it was great timing for where they were as a company and what they were trying to do at the time. It's changed significantly. And my idea was if you had an artist education platform that especially handled onboarding. So when an artist or a label joins Bandcamp, often they'll have spoken to the outreach team, but what do you do then? What do you do next?
Yeah.
And like how can you I think my pitch was even if you just increase the amount of success people have by 10% for everybody, that's significant for a lot
Yeah.
of people and that's significant for the business. And so that was really what I was trying to do, was trying to get in there and find out the stories of all of the artists and labels who were doing really well and the ones who weren't and why, and what really moves the needle at a company like Bandcamp. Because having been on the outside of it and a user for a very long time, you have a perspective on how you think it works. And then you go work there and you get the data and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
different. All of
Hmm.
my opinions from the outside are very invalid. But once I got in there, I really started going through a research process to figure out what a useful education platform would look like.
Right.
Unfortunately, there was a lot of change at the company when I was there. It was bought twice. And eventually I decided to leave because it felt like my project in the form that I wanted to deliver it wasn't going to work for the next phase of where they were headed. I just really wanted to do it. I just really wanted to be useful. Can't do research forever,
Yeah.
and so that was why I left, because I want to do something different, but it's still in the artist education space.
Right. What was some of the research that you encountered that was so surprising for you, as as opposed to being an outsider?
Yeah, I think there were lots of little tidbits that I found interesting. Like, I know that people will say, "Oh, as part of a marketing plan, you should think about distribution. Distribution is very important, and where you're putting your music for people to find it."
Hmm.
But there were some really clear patterns that you could see, and I think there's this real pressure on artists that I know, certainly my friends, to share everywhere you're available, right? So let's say you're on social media and you put a link in your bio.
Hmm.
Often there's like 15 links in there saying, "This is my next gig, this was my last release, this is the next thing." Da, 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 da.
That's mine.
Yes. Okay. So that's quite overwhelming. And usually, okay, so we'll get to it. But when I encourage people to set goals, make them time, if you make them time limited, let's say you've been working really, really hard on a release and you have a goal of recouping your costs in the next 6 months. Small goal, like just to recoup.
Yeah.
You've got to make that money back somehow. And I think a lot of people will put pressure on artists to do things like do pre-save on Spotify, that kind of thing. What we were seeing is artists who if that was a priority for them, yeah, we'll come to smart goals. If that was a priority for them, was making some money, they would put one link and it would be to a pre-order of what they were selling on Bandcamp. And they would worry about Spotify and streaming numbers later and just be like, let me make some money first. And some artists would make it so that you could only access that release on Bandcamp for a limited time, say on vinyl first. And it seriously increased people's sales, like significantly increased people's sales, things like that. Or, it doesn't sound like much, but the pay what you want option, so you can set a minimum price and then add pay what you want afterwards. 50% on average of buyers will pay you more than you've
Yeah.
asked for if you enable that. Things like that. But also, I didn't really realize they had built in all of these tools to help people find music on there. So I didn't, because I used it, but not like heavily. And yes, you can set a minimum. So I was using it, but not heavily. And when you look at your artist analytics, if you add it all together, usually about 20% of your sales are coming from within Bandcamp. So
Yeah.
people who found you through Bandcamp, not people who were like finding you on social media and da 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 da. People who either came across a recommendation on somebody else's page, or another artist did, or they searched a tag, or you featured in the Bandcamp Daily or radio shows. These kinds of things, they all add up. And so it's kind of like a sales boost of 20%. If you, for most people, especially if you really make use of those features.
Mhm.
And all of that together, it made me really understand how different of a platform it was to something that to me feels quite extractive, like streaming.
Yeah. 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 It's interesting because you basically, when you were sort of having that job at Bandcamp, it's just such valuable information for what you do now, right? Because all these kind of metrics, for some reason, I mean, I get they're not like secretive about it, but it's also not stuff that you hear or read about all the time, right? Like obviously, a lot of these sort of like percentages and metrics are more for sort of in the background, I suppose, right?
They are. It's a funny one. I would say the folks who ran Bandcamp are not marketing people. They are tech people
Yeah.
who really, or the people who started it,
Yeah.
they just really care. Or that was the goal, was just how can we help artists earn more money. And I think when you're building products in tech, it's so hard to do that you don't always think about how you kind of need to spend just as much time telling people about it and how to use it as you
Yeah.
do making the thing, which I think all of us have,
Yeah.
or certainly all of the artists I know, like, I've made it, I have nothing left. It's similar in tech when you're making a product. You're like, now I just want to build something else. I just want to think about something else. I don't want to talk about it. So it's
Yeah.
not a secret. It's usually exhaustion.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's funny. I was looking into this other platform called Samply. Where it's kind of like WeTransfer or like Dropbox, kind of, but more music specific. And they have a Discord where all the developers are sort of, you can send suggestions and things like that. And it's so funny because all the people that sign up and want to use the platform, they all have very different ideas because they're musicians. Like they need the platform to do certain things for them. But it's very different from the tech people that actually made the platform, right? So it's really funny to see in that one chat how sort of these people are trying to like find each other, where the tech people thought they made this amazing like feature, and then no one uses it because it's completely useless for an artist, and the other way around as well, where very simple things are completely ignored because tech people don't always think like artists, right?
No.
So, yes. But anyway, so now that you're sort of freed, I guess, of Bandcamp and sort of, used a lot of this information and also obviously all the other things that you already knew, how are you sort of like transforming that into your own business? And then after that, we'll start chatting about development of artists.
Thank you. Yeah. So I kind of came out of there and felt this frustration of, oh no, now I'm sitting on all of this information. I have nowhere to put it.
Hmm.
But not just all of this information I have at Bandcamp. It's been the same thing throughout my career. I'd be promoting events and telling my mates, this is how you sell tickets, and that would be kind of as far as it got. Or I was judging funding applications for big funders. And I'd be like, you really need to explain to people how to do this. And it felt like the same issue across the board. And I don't want to sound cynical, but I do think sometimes the music industry, all of the arts, but the music industry in particular, kind of can be a little bit opaque in or less than clear and make things more confusing than they need to about how you do stuff when you're an artist. Like
Yeah.
there is only so much of your brain that you can dedicate to being great at your craft, making music, doing all of this. There's so much work to do to then use whatever's left to understand a ridiculously complicated industry. Why? Like, I don't want any artist to get good at that stuff. I literally always want people to just know enough information of the most useful information to do something that will actually move the needle rather than, oh, yeah, basically do a degree in arts marketing or
Yeah.
something. No, you just need to know some really useful stuff that can help you achieve what you're trying to achieve. And I think because I've been feeling that build up of frustration over the years, having done all these different jobs, and then most of my mates are artists, I'm on the front line all the time of people experiencing the frustration of that and experiencing what that looks like in real life, which is, oh, I've just spent 9 months on a project. It got no traction. I released it. I feel depressed now and I don't know how I'm going to pay to do this again and what is the point. And it's quite dispiriting and I hate it and I want to be useful if I have this information. I wish I could do that for free. I can't. I need to be able to pay the people that I'm going to work with, and so I need to come up with a business model. But I think that within that, certainly working somewhere like Bandcamp, it teaches you that you can be really fair and make a living at the same time. And I think that's certainly the direction I'm trying to go in. But
Yeah.
also, I won't lie, I have given away a lot of free information in the past, and I find that sometimes people don't value it if they didn't pay for it. And
Yeah.
that sounds silly, but I think it's a psychological thing of like, well, I've just paid for this and I better pay attention to it and not throw it in a drawer and wait till I'm ready for it. Like I need to, because I've invested something
Yeah.
here. And so I do think that there is something, like I give what I can away for free, but I do think there is something in that exchange, in that not just for the person who's giving you the information, but for yourself to be like, I'm investing in myself. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys do this, but I have a budget every year for myself for learning and development. And I'll try and spend that budget without guilt and be like, no, I'm investing in myself and my career and my learning. Marketing changes every 5 minutes, so I better learn all of the things as they change,
Yeah.
and I think, yeah, there's something really valuable about ongoing education when you work in industries that change all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's also about valuing your self worth, right? Like, it's not just about sort of giving away free information, I suppose, but the fact that someone commits, monetarily or with energy or with time to something, that also makes that information more valuable, right? That's the whole point of it, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I was gonna. I guess now that we've sort of all described like how depressing it can be if a project fails, which I have certainly been there multiple times. The other thing I also wanted to say real quick was that usually the more I feel like I'm learning about the music industry, the more time it cuts out of what I should be doing. My family is always like, you should be making music, while I'm like, well, I can't make music when I'm learning about the industry, right? But when you learn about it, etc. So this is a sort of ongoing issue. But I guess maybe to sort of rewind a project like that all the way to the beginning, you and I sort of talked earlier about sort of goal setting and how you sort of start planning something before all of this sort of frustration sets in. And really sort of like have a better overview of what you are actually trying to achieve, right?
Yeah. So if you guys are up for it, I've got a little exercise for us to do around goal setting. You don't have to use real goals, you can use made up ones. But I just want to talk about how I approach it because I know people like to use the SMART framework, which is smart, measurable. What's the middle one? A?
I don't know, smart.
I can't remember. Anyway, I don't use that framework. I use my own. Oh,
Achievable.
yeah, achievable, realistic, and time-based, right? Yeah, I don't use that one.
Okay. All right.
I have my own. And I think it's just because I feel like as an artist, think words like achievable and realistic can be off-putting. They can make you feel like, oh, if I have big ambitions, then that's not okay. I should be more humble than that. And actually, a lot of the time, I'm trying to encourage people to dream bigger rather than smaller. And so I don't really go for that. But I do think, and the reason I really care about people setting goals is because that feeling of frustration you get when you've put something out or you've put loads of time into something and some things have gone well. It's gone well in some way, like you feel good about it, maybe, or you had feedback from a couple of key people, or whatever it might be. You can still come out feeling really flat. And I feel like that is partly because if you set goals around it that are really specific, then you can actually measure how you've done and give yourself a proper pat on the back when you do achieve those things. Also, you can build a strategy to achieve those specific things. Like for a lot of people, it will just be like, I don't know, I just want a lot of people to hear it. That's a terrible goal because how many is enough?
Yeah. Mine is
There
always
doesn't
something.
exist.
Mine is always something like it needs to make an impact. But what is
What
that?
is that? What is that? So I'm gonna try and share my screen and I'm trying to keep up with the chat. Okay, no, we're good.
All right. All good.
Right, hang on. So let me see if I can share. It's giving me something else. I thought I had. Okay. We'll close that. And that. Let's see if it gives me the option right now. Sorry, folks. Okay, here we go. All right, so I'm going to full screen it if I can. Whoops, nope. Hmm. Sorry, I have so much stuff in front of it, I can't actually see what I'm doing.
This works though if you want
Can
to
you
keep it.
see this?
Yeah, yeah.
I would rather full screen it,
Full
but
screen it.
it's probably in view. Full
On the right, you're
screen.
saying. Oh, yeah.
Hey. Okay. All right. So for a minute, this person is not called Shay. They're called Suleiman. It's an image I pulled off Bandcamp. But for the purposes of what we're doing right now, let's imagine this is someone called Shay. They're an emerging solo artist. They're planning an EP release, and they have some gigs coming up next year. He's written down some goals, but he's forgotten the golden rules. And so we're going to go through them. So to me, a good goal is got to be really specific. You've got to be able to figure out how are you going to measure whether or not you've achieved it. It has to be time-based. You have to give yourself a timeline, and you should know why you're doing it. So I prefer the why behind it rather than it being achievable or realistic or whatever. Just because in art, you're dealing with what matters to you, aren't you? Really? And so let's talk about why. Okay, and a bad goal to me is one that's vague. That's the thing that's going to bring you down and make you feel rubbish at the end of the day. So I would like us to, in the chat, figure out what is wrong with this goal. Just grow your following on social media. And I'm happy to give you hints that if you could start throwing out some suggestions about what is wrong with this goal in the chat, that would be great. Yeah, exactly. From what to what, we can't measure it. Everything's wrong with it. Which platform? There's no specific numbers. Exactly. This is super vague, right? This is not going to help. But it's the most common goal that people give me as artists before we do this exercise. Everyone says this to me, and I'm like, oh, no, let's drill down. Okay, so here is a different kind of goal. It's nothing to do with social media, but it's a very specific goal. So let's say you've been booked for a gig and you're thinking not enough people are coming to that gig. You want that gig to sell out because that's going to look really good and maybe it will make agents more interested in you and you want to do loads more gigging next year or whatever it might be. But saying you want X amount more people to come to a show at a specific location on a specific date, we have a good goal, right? Okay, so we're going to do another one. This is the second most common goal that people give me. What is wrong with this one? Feel free to say in the chat. I think you're getting it, but I just want to, double check. Yeah, it's super vague. Yeah, which people? Your people or any people? Yeah, it's very relative. Exactly. Okay. Yeah, is it across all platforms or just on one? So here is a different kind of goal. And it might be that the reason that you want somebody like Giles Peterson or some tastemaker, doesn't matter who, to play your music on a certain show in a certain time frame is because you know that a festival booker that you're interested in that festival is really obsessed with that person's show, and basically their whole festival every year is a best of that person's show. Or it might just be that that person is then maybe going to book you for a live lounge and that will get you straight to the kind of customer base you want. Or there could be lots of different reasons behind it, but you really got to figure out why. So we're going to do one more, sign a record deal, another one. Can you make some suggestions of a way to improve this goal in the chat? What could, if you could remix this goal, how would you change it? Yeah, exactly. What kind of deal do you want? Which labels do you want to sign to? When do you want this deal by? How long of a deal do you want? what do you want them to offer you? What is it that you can't do for yourself that you need a record label to do for you? You know, is it that you just want a massive PR campaign behind it because it's going to help you achieve a different kind of goal? Like, what is it that you want this label to do for you? Yeah. So, can I ask each of you? I don't know if you have a pen or if you can just write it on a note in your laptop, just to set one goal right now. You can do a fake one if you don't have a real one that springs to mind, but just set one goal for yourself. And I'm going to go back up to the golden rules so you have them. Just spend a few minutes doing that. Does anyone want to share one? You don't have to. It would be cool to see. Did you do one, Martin?
Yes.
Okay.
Hold on.
Hey, Alex, have you got any ideas of which labels? Oh, okay, cool. What kind of deals do you guys want with these labels? What do you want them to do for you? Don't worry if you don't know now, but maybe make a note to start thinking about that. Finishing EPs, build a set on Pirate Radio. Cool. Music menu on NPR's Jazz Weekly Jazz Show. Cool. Why NPR? Because you want to tour America?
Because it's like public radio, right? It's
Yeah.
like the BBC, I guess.
Yeah.
Feels like a legitimate sort of goal to achieve.
Yeah. These are great. Is it interesting to see each other's goals? Yeah.
Yeah.
It really feels like everyone's in similar boats. Yeah, on NPR when it still exists, I know. And actually play at Deviation. Sorry, I haven't talked to them in a long time, so I can't hook you up. Okay, cool. Well, these are great. For yourself, really drill down into why. You know, like flesh out these goals when you get home and really drill down into why. I am going to stop screen sharing if I can. How do I do that? Stop share.
I'm gonna save all these goals and then come
Yay.
back. Come back in 6 months.
That would be super cool. Okay, so that was my little goal setting exercise. Thank you so much for taking part. You did great.
Super nice. I mean, obviously, yeah, specificness is, the sort of key, I guess, right? To sort of set a goal. How do you evaluate your goal? Is that also, is it also because it's so specific that it makes it easier to sort of describe
Yeah.
success?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear. If you say, I want to sign with XYZ record label
Mm.
and you've done it, great. But equally, if your goal was to sign with that record label and you got a better deal than another one, or you realize through going through the process of researching, pitching, and talking to labels, they didn't actually have that much to offer in the end, and they were coming back saying, "Yeah, we can do a deal, but we're not going to do any work." Then
Yeah.
that gave you clarity on the fact that this is not the right time. I'm going to do this by myself, because you're not actually going to help me achieve the other goals that are on my list. So I think that specificity is what makes it easy to measure. It's harder if it's something like, I want X number of streams across all of the different platforms, then you have to get into the data. But at least if you are being really specific, then you can measure it it's usually quite straightforward to measure it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess even if you don't reach the goal in the end, which often also happens, right? Like it doesn't always sort of end up exactly the way you sort of specified it in the beginning, but by sort of, I guess, taking daily steps to get to that point, you often sort of open up other opportunities or get in touch with other people or other labels or other clubs or whatever that eventually still get you to a place that you wanted to go in the first place, right? Like,
Yes, I find this level of like, if you're okay, let's say you're trying to get played on a certain radio show, right?
mhm,
In order to do that, you are going to have to figure out, oh, who produces the show? Is it the DJ themselves, or do they have a producer? What is the process for sending them my music? Is there a timeline? What do I need to send them? Let me write my press release. All of those actions are going to force you to be in a mode of doing really productive things that you will then use for other activities that you're, within your campaign. And I think it will just boost your campaign further. Or you might be like, well, there's no point sending it to this one person. Let me at least send it to 10 people. Let me make a short list. And at that point, maybe you had one goal, but because of all the work you had to do to achieve that goal, often it means you're doing more positive work in general and you're going way past it.
yeah, yeah. I also think what very often comes up in sort of conversations with artists or with younger artists is that they're completely overwhelmed with the amount of possibilities, right? And you sort of go through someone's stories and you'll see all these different people doing all these different things, and for some reason it sort of invites people to want all those things as well, right? Because on one story you see someone playing at Outlook, and on the next one you see them touring in India, and on the next one they build their own sound system, and on the next, so eventually while scrolling you think about all the sort of things that you also want, or the things that you think you need for being successful, right? How do you sort of limit your goals while also not setting the bar too low? Like, what is the sort of like middle ground between being realistic, I guess, but also not getting totally overwhelmed with the sort of amount of information that's out there?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that you can do with that. I think one of them is if you are putting them on a real timeline, that timeline is going to force your hand, because I think if you're a sensible person, you know how long it's going to take you to do these things. There's always a secret list of jobs that you're going to have to do that you're not thinking about, and it's going
Mm-hmm.
to take you longer than you anticipate. But having that timeline attached to each one, you're going to know there's no way I can do more than these things in the next 6 months. So maybe this other goal is going to have to be a long-term goal. I think so I do consultation sessions with people, right? And I think the most common issue that I see is people coming to me. So I make them do a goal setting exercise before we talk, so I know what they want to achieve short term and long term. Often, what I will see in the short term goals is long term goals. They put them in the wrong place, and it will be, I want to release an EP next year and a film,
Yes.
and I want to start an international arts organization, and and it will be huge. And I think that actually what's going on there is usually people feeling really overwhelmed because they don't have the support that they need to achieve what they're trying to achieve. So instead of thinking, how can I go out and get the support that I need to, in terms of collaborators or a manager or whoever it might be to be in my corner, people think, let me build this larger structure that lots of us will benefit from.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, if you try and do that, it's such a massive job. And often the people who are suggesting this to me are people who are unaware those things already exist and have no experience in running them, and they're really hard to do some of these things.
Yeah.
You're sabotaging yourself, because actually all you needed perhaps was an afternoon with someone who could help you, give you the knowledge you need to achieve this one thing you're trying to do. Or maybe you just needed to chat to 5 different labels, get an offer from one, and now you have some support going forwards with PR or whatever it is. But I think that especially women, actually, it's very common for us to try and solve the world's problems and turn that into a business, which is very hard to do if you are trying to solve your own problems at the same time. And
Yeah.
so I think in terms of being realistic, if you can get really, really clear on the timeline, it will save you a lot of the time. To be like, okay, what are the steps to achieving that? Maybe I should wait and start an international arts organization when I'm well into my career and I'm established and I kind of hand over all of these other jobs to someone else. Or maybe I could just partner with an existing organization and get them to do something differently or whatever it is. But
Yeah.
yeah, figuring out what's short term and long term is a big one.
Yeah, yeah. I think also like a lot of people just have trouble narrowing down, the opportunities that there are, right? Like even if you just release music, the simple thing of releasing music. Um, well, first of all, you have the format of the music, right? And then you have all these different platforms. Do you need to sort of service them all? Do you need to concentrate on one specific one? All those kind of things already save you so much time if you just make the right choices in advance rather than trying everything out, right? I also noticed that a lot of people sort of don't even consider sort of that they have a choice, right? Because everyone just assumes like, oh, if I make music, it needs to be on all these different platforms. I need to work with a promo service because everyone else does that. I need to be in a magazine because everyone else is in that magazine, and kind of like not define specifically what they want for their particular music, right? Is that something that you see in your work too? That people sort of have a hard time sort of specifying where sort of their art fits into the bigger picture?
Yeah, in so many different ways. I think something I would really encourage, like something practical that everyone can do, is if you use a platform like Instagram, I would start seeing it rather than as a place that like sucks time. I would try and teach that, like treat it like your research tool. So I don't know if everybody is using boards, but I have lots of boards. And it forces me to be really intentional when I'm scrolling. So, for example, some of them will be, I've got one that's media opportunities. So, if I see somebody who's a bit similar to me,
Hmm.
and they're doing a media thing, they're talking on a podcast, they're being featured in a magazine, whatever it is, I pin that, I save that for later, and I have a whole list of media opportunities. So when the time comes later down the line, and I'm like, oh, I need to start reaching out, I wonder who would be interested in talking to me about my project, I've got a list there.
Right.
Or if it's people who've done really creative things on Instagram and I get stuck for ideas, I have a content examples tab that I can scroll for inspiration, whatever it is. But rather than passively experiencing other people's successes that they're sharing online or whatever,
Yeah.
see it as a really great research tool because you can organize it into boards of later. I'm going to look at that later for me as something to work towards. I think it starts to take the kind of sting out of it a little bit. And also, I think we sometimes just have to be okay with the fact that we're human beings, we're fallible, and it is really hard not to look at everything else everybody else has got going on and feel bad. Like that's just natural. I think sometimes you just have to give yourself a pass. Be like, it's okay that I feel like that. It's part of being human.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think maybe, like if you sort of treat it as more of a ideas machine, right? Like where you can sort of pick up stuff that you can maybe use later is probably a much more healthier way of scrolling than just sort of scrolling and kind of almost immediately forgetting what you were just watching, right? Um, Another thing I wanted to ask about also is obviously, when you have your goal and you sort of have a release or you have a project that you're working on, you're going to have to partner up with other people, with, you're going to have to use apps, you're going to have to use, sort of parts of the music industry that maybe you don't necessarily engage with all the time. Are there any sort of like basic rules that you use to sort of filter out what is the sort of the right people to work with and the wrong people to work with? Because there's also a lot of wrong people in the music industry.
Oh yeah, it's full of romance. I think we get really stuck being online, and I feel really lucky to have come up before we were so online, because I did so much. I wouldn't have thought at the time it was networking. I thought I was partying, but technically I was networking because I was going to everybody's thing, everybody's sort of event, everybody's whatever it was they were putting on, I was there. And I feel like if you really want to suss people out and suss things out, you need to go and meet them, ideally. And it might be that, for example, Bandcamp has meetups. I don't know if they're going to keep doing them, but they will have meetups. And if you go to an event like that and you meet the team, you'll see, oh, these are really solid people. These are really good people. And even if they're not having an event and you can't go to it, maybe they'll do something online. Like analyze not just the info. I see a lot of like what is it that Spotify do? They have their Spotify artist platform. And I see a lot of quite sycophantic comments underneath, like, yeah, dropping jewels, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, they have just told you how to benefit them and not you for 10 minutes solid here. I don't know if they're dropping jewels. I don't know if I'd go that far, but I think there is an element of using a critical lens about the people behind something, if you can. But then also, I think it's okay to fail. I think it's okay to try stuff and be like, well, I wasted my money there. Because eventually you start to get a sense of it. There's only so much we can ask other people for recommendations. And I definitely have a few people in my corner where I'm like, if they're recommending it, this is probably really good.
Yeah.
But things are changing at such a rate that there's no way that the people I know will have tried everything and can recommend, but there will be a few people who their hit rate's quite high for my specific goals or the way I think. And that, because with tools and things like that, the thing that I like using, you might hate using. And so it's quite difficult to, so make use of the free trial or figure out, are there 3 months of the year where I'm not making music, I'm not touring, I'm in my house and I can make tons of this other thing that I need to do. Maybe I only sign up for, a month-long subscription to that and I do everything I need to do with that and then delete it at the end of the month, set a reminder in my calendar and delete it at the end of the month.
Yeah.
But I think the one thing I would say about it though is it is okay to fail and waste money in the pursuit of trying to achieve stuff, because it's impossible not to. Like, there are courses that I've bought. So I do a lot of courses to try and stay current with what's going on, and and sometimes the one I paid £40 for is better than the one I paid £1,000 for. But there wasn't any real way of knowing that till I did them, and I've learned from them both to a certain extent, and I've learned that it's not always the big fancy one that is, the best investment. It depends what you're trying to get out of it, and also you learn how you learn through things like that. Like, I realized, I prefer a short course because I lose, momentum with these things, and so I prefer it to be a couple of hours than this massive, essentially sitting down to do a degree by yourself. Kind of thing. So I don't know if that answers the question. It's quite a lot of random thoughts there.
I mean, I do think that like sort of recommendations, obviously from people that you also trust, goes a very, very long way. And I think especially people that have been around for a much longer time, they obviously encounter so many more people that that network, so the invisible network of good people, as I call it, becomes bigger and bigger, right? And it just helps a lot, I think, to sort of tap into that more often than to see whatever has traction on socials, or or even people that are successful don't necessarily have to be good people, right? Like that's also a big difference, right?
Yeah, it's often a big gap.
Yes, yes, yes. So, another thing that we were sort of discussing earlier as well is obviously, yeah, you have a sort of goal. Sometimes you reach that goal, sometimes you don't. But there's also this sort of topic of trying, right? Like we were sort of discussing earlier this video that we both saw on Instagram. I don't know, maybe I don't know if I should. I can't really show it, I think, but basically it was the writer Ocean Vuong who was talking about something called cringe culture, right? Where people are kind of afraid to show that they are trying to achieve something, right? And that they always have this sort of air of not giving, a shit about what they are trying to do. This thing just sets me off hugely because I always sort of, when I sort of have a goal, I want to sort of spend energy every single day to be able to reach that goal, right? And also, I also like to sort of manifest it and voice it to people. So I always want to sort of show people and tell people about my ideas rather than keeping it to myself and sort of being depressed about it if I don't manage to make that goal or to reach that goal. What was your sort of thoughts when you were watching that?
It's funny because we probably saw it the same day, and then you sent it to me.
Yeah.
It made me think a lot about the electronic musicians and jazz musicians that I know, because I would say there's a similarity in a I'm going to use the word fearfulness of self-promotion.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's this unkind culture of judgment, it really, really strong one in electronic music and in jazz, that makes people feel like they can't try and they can't fail in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Right? You can't test something out and do something that other people might feel is a bit cringe, because you will be ridiculed. Probably not to your face, but behind your back.
Yeah.
And I think that is incredibly difficult for the musicians I know who exist in those worlds. It's stronger in those worlds than pop, for example, which I've worked into, or hip hop or whatever. And so I think it made me think about, when you're riding a bike and you're not very good at riding a bike, you are looking at the edge, at the curb, because you're like, I don't want to fall off. I don't want to fall off. And please let me not fall off this curb in front of everybody. You fall off, right? Because that's the thing that you're focused on, or you end up getting really close to the edge because that is what you're scared of. And that is what you're drawing yourself towards. Instead of looking at the bigger picture and saying, okay, but what can I do instead of that? Where can I go instead of that? And Martin kindly shared some of the your sort of questions with me. And I think somebody said something about not wanting to become an Instagram talking head. And I really get that, because that is the thing people are so scared I'm going to tell them to do. They're just like, oh my God, I can't, that's the one thing I can't do. And I would never encourage someone to do that, to be honest with you, because I think if you're trying to be an educator, yeah, you should do that. If you are trying to be a musician, no, you shouldn't be doing that. Yeah. There are so many other things you should be doing, but also the big thing, coming back to what you were saying about collaborating, Martin, is I would say treat your own personal social media channels as no more than 10 to 20% of your total campaign for anything. And if you can see it like that, it's 20% max of your campaign. That's going to force you to think about, oh gosh, what is the remaining 80%? What does that look like? What am I supposed to be doing? You're supposed to be doing press and radio and using other people's social platforms and figuring out your distribution platforms. and how they can help you make sales or get your music out there or whatever it is you're trying to achieve with your specific goals. You're supposed to be doing all of these other things that haven't gone away, but they've become less visible. And we all feel, because social media is so difficult for us emotionally, we all feel that we're putting the most energy into our socials quite
Yeah.
often,
Yeah.
when actually that is just the thing that makes us feel afraid. And so when you're thinking about your to-do list, I would always encourage you to don't fall into the trap of focusing on the things that make you uncomfortable instead of the things that are actually urgent and important.
Yeah.
Because often you focus on that thing that is making you uncomfortable because you can't sit with the discomfort. It doesn't mean that it's urgent or important.
Yeah.
So, bringing it back to what Ocean was saying, if you make, like, if you can, there's a French word, I can't think of the English equivalent, but you have to make it relative, make everything relative. How important is this one thing? You know, is this 1% of my campaign? Is this 5% of my campaign? Think of it like that. So if you want to try something, try it because it's a small thing. You have zoomed out, you've looked at the bigger picture. And yeah, I can fail at one small thing. That is okay. If it were the whole thing, yeah, that would be harder. But really try and put it in perspective to give yourself a bit more space to try things that, yeah, you might not love that in 6 months, but you tried,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. No, I mean, I've seen, I see many sort of artists with amazing music and, amazing sort of artistic ideas, and because they are so afraid of showing that they really want it, that they really want to play this music to as many people as possible, for example, that they're kind of like, it's kind of to the detriment of their own artistry, people that even, think about how, to sort of not appear on photos or not, I don't know. Like, I had a discussion with someone who didn't want to have capital letters in their artist name because they wanted to have a sort of like understated feel. And I mean, that could also be obviously a great artistic choice, that could be cool. But it came from a place of kind of trying to sort of discount their own artistry almost, because, they didn't want to show everyone that they took themselves serious as an artist, right? And so if you do that, how is anyone else going to take you serious as an artist, And so, like, little things like that, it seems like it's very sort of pervasive and almost applauded sometimes to not care about your thing, right? And like you said, I guess we are also, from a sort of pre-internet age where maybe that was very different. But I do think that is a growing sort of problem where people should definitely sort of stand up for whatever art you make, however good or bad it is. It doesn't really matter. It's all you, right?
Yeah. And if you need to, do it for someone else. Be
Yeah,
like, okay, I'm gonna do this, but it is definitely going to make other people feel that they have permission to try something if
yeah,
I do it. If you can't do it for yourself, do it for someone else.
yeah. That's another thing, obviously, because people see you as an artist and see what you do, and so it sort of gives them opportunities to try and do something too, right? Someone said, always makes me think of DJ Fart in the club. Yeah, so that's yeah. So it's just to sort of not take things serious, right? Like, so anyway, this is great. Loads of good comments too, but I wanted to sort of see if people had specific questions for you, or if you feel like there was something that we didn't discuss yet.
I'm trying to remember if there was anything that we didn't cover in those questions. They're a bit vague in my mind now. You have one, but it's too long to type.
We talked about resources. We talked about goal setting.
Can Scott just ask his? Can you go on? Can you unmute and ask?
Oh yeah.
It was So we were talking about earlier, and it's funny that you mentioned it about um, like creating a whole big project because actually there's just one specific thing that you need to get the right support with, right? So I find for me is I'm thinking about how I can get off the internet and in real life more, but the issue that I'm facing is that like building your network organically and in person is a little bit difficult. So then I start thinking about like all of these projects that I could create to facilitate these spaces, but that just feels like a huge task. So I suppose I'm wondering about how do you get off the internet and grow things organically when for me right now it feels like there's a bit of a bottleneck and I don't know how to approach things. I guess just building on the network that you've already got, right? But
Well, who do you want to meet? Let's start there. What kinds of people would you like to meet?
yeah, I think it's largely just other producers in real life, or like not even necessarily to collaborate, just to like form a relationship with, you know.
Are there events that you could go to, like CDR in London? I don't know where you're based.
I'm in Manchester. Yeah, we've got CDR here. I suppose we've got the Ableton workshops here as well. They're the two that spring to mind.
Do you go?
Okay, yeah, good idea.
I mean, I would say start with something someone else is organizing because it's easier, it's less work for you. Start with that, and then one thing that I did was get marginally involved. So you don't have to take it on as your full-time job, but it might be like, can I come do the door?
Okay.
You will meet everyone if you do the door, or whatever it might be. Or can I like I'll hold the clipboard and take the email addresses and then everybody else can talk to me or whatever it might be. But like just do it a couple of times and you'll start meeting people. Or it might just be that you go on the regs and you show up and you meet people and those people will introduce you to other people. I don't think I think part of it is just getting over the feeling that you're networking. You're not go just enjoy yourself, like just go and enjoy yourself, have a nice time at these events, and you will meet people. I think it's just too hard if you tell us I have to network, I have to increase my network. Like that's but not what humans want to do, right?
Yeah, I think, and when you put the word network on it, it just instantly feels icky, right? And you've got
Yeah.
to, like, you only realize that you've networked afterwards, you know?
Yeah, just go and big up other people. Like, this is
Yeah.
the best way to meet people. Is I really like what you just did. That was really cool. That inspired me. Like when are you doing something else? I'll come, or whatever it might be. Or someone in your network is doing something. Can I support? I'll share it with my people. I'll bring a bunch of people down, or whatever it is. But like, be nice and helpful to other people. That's one of the best ways to
Mhm.
make friends fast.
Yeah.
It's being like just being kind to other people and giving them the support you wish you had because you get it back often not from them but weirdly from other people.
Yeah, cool. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll take the plunge. Thanks, Amelia.
I saw another good one here. What are examples of the remaining 80% of one's campaign for electronic music artists would you suggest outside of that maximum of 20% for own socials?
Okay, so I am not frontline working at a record label right this second, so my information could be a year out of date. Forgive that. But generally, I would say the easiest thing if you are in Europe is radio. Radio is marketing that pays you money. Like what? You know, that's great. If you can get if you just start getting on some internet shows, that kind of thing, it's a really, really good starting point, really solid starting point. But also then not just thinking about, oh, how can I get on a couple of radio shows? Maybe you can try and pitch yourself as a guest, or you can go do a guest mix. You don't have to be able to mix, go and do a guest slot on a radio show. Start with radio. I always say that is in Europe, we are so lucky to have so much radio. It's not the same everywhere else in the world. Martin, you were nodding because it's not the same in the US, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say start with radio. Press is trickier, but Martin, you and I were around in the blogging era. As far as I'm concerned, Matt has just moved on to Instagram. and to TikTok and these other things. There are so many influencers out there who are just through pure passion sharing the 5 tracks they loved this week, and they have some of them have hundreds of thousands of followers. That I would say, rather than just trying to build up your own socials, think about who is out there that I could, if you are thinking about doing social media, who is out there that I could connect with, who could be sharing what I'm doing, because that's what they do. Another thing is, there is still traditional media. You can still approach it. There are still blogs and magazines and newspapers and these things worth a go. There's even television. You could still try. It might be that people do live sessions on YouTube. Maybe don't start as big as like Colors or something, but there are lots of copycats who have their own audiences and these kinds of things. I think just do a piece of research. The way I like to see it is pick 3 artists who are a couple of steps ahead of you, not 10 years ahead of you, just a couple of steps ahead of you. Google them, see who is supporting them, who has supported them recently. It has to be artists who do a relatively similar thing to you. And then just literally write down everyone who supported them. That is your press list.
Yeah.
And it will take you an afternoon.
Yeah. You also said something in on one of your Instagram reels, I think, where you said, if there's 2 different artists, one is just sort of, leaning back, waiting for press to approach them, right? Or a second artist that approaches people with ideas, right? With, I want to do a feature, but I also have a press photographer with me, and I have a location, and I have this, and I have that. You basically fill in a little bit of the work for that particular media, right? It helps to sort of get a lot of stuff done, right? And I think, like, for the last campaign on my label, we sort of concentrated on radio, but we tried to do like something different for all these different radio stations. Like on NTS you go, but you do a breakfast show. On Benji B you do a different type of feature. You don't want to do like the exact same thing on all these shows, because then it feels like a press blitz, But if you do like interesting things that sort of connect with the particular show that you're on, it just makes it for more interesting content as well, right? And you can sort of tell people about it every single time, because it is something different every time, right? Like your 3 favorite tracks from the week, and then breakfast show is more rambling, and then you do a mix show on rinse, etc., etc. So you can sort of like alternate more, I guess, even if you only use a particular type of media.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but like I love that part where you, on your Instagram you had like a little section about these sort of artist A and artist B. Remember that's definitely a really good one, I think.
I think it's difficult sometimes if you haven't done a job to understand what that person is facing to do their job, and having just that little bit of empathy for that person who is trying really hard to do their job. And what can I do to make their life easier? That thing that you can do to make their life easier is going to ingratiate you with them, and they will pick you over other people all the time. It happens all the time.
Yeah. There was another one here. Oh yeah, from Addison. I was just curious about the Bandcamp sales data. Pricing something higher or lower with a pay what you want model. Is it possible to compare them, or too many factors in there? Or did you have any personal philosophy about that?
Really good. So pricing something, I think price it within reason. I wouldn't say make something outrageously expensive just for the sake of testing it, but have a look at the range of what other folks in your world are charging, and go for whatever you feel you can ask for with a straight face. But also, then on top of that, make it pay what you want, because there are people like me who never pay the asking price. I always pay above. And the reason that I'm doing that is because I feel weird about the fact that I can listen to this record now I've bought it for the rest of my life, and I'm never going to pay you again. What? That's so weird. So to me, so therefore I will pay more. And depending on how flush I am that week, it can really vary. But there are people, if they are the kind of people who are buying music in the first place, which they do not have to do most of the time, then they're doing it to support. So give them that opportunity. But I think more importantly than just focusing on the pricing is focusing on having a range of things available for sale, because that is what will make the difference between you earning essentially double on the same project. So the artists on Bandcamp who earn the most, all of them sell merch without exception, like nearly without exception. Merch is going to double your income essentially from anything that you're selling on there. And so I would really encourage you, start small. It's okay, you can start small, just start with like 10 t-shirts if you want, or whatever it is, or badges, something, but start trying out and seeing, ask people who like your music, what would you like to buy from me? Is there anything you would like to buy? Often it's artwork. I really want prints. It really annoys me that I can't buy prints. I've sometimes bought vinyl, cut the cover off to put it on my wall, you know, or whatever it might be. So really start asking your fans what it is that they would like to buy from you, because that's where you can start to increase the range of prices of things you sell.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I also think that it's not. It's good to sort of fair pricely, like sort of make, don't do like $6.99 or $10.99. That feels like a corporate price almost, while whole numbers are much better, right? Like it feels more sort of honest, I guess. And there's also a lot of people that do sort of timely pricing, where they say that something is available for 24 hours, and I don't know, like sometimes I'm into that idea, but if they do it too often in a row, then it sort of puts me off a little bit. I'm like, actually, it's a digital file, like it's always available. So why are you putting these sort of like, temporary sort of values on it, But
Actually, I hear you, but Martin, let's not forget we breathe rare air. We know about this stuff.
yeah,
And the average punter doesn't know and doesn't care quite often. And they're just like, okay, that's the price. You
yeah,
know?
yeah,
So
yeah.
like don't wind yourself up too much is all I would say.
Yeah. No, I mean, maybe I use myself as as the standard, which is not always obviously what the standard of the people are that buy the music, right? So yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Let me see. There was a couple quick questions. Let me see. Are there big sales differences between different types of merch?
So
Yeah.
the most popular is t-shirts by a long way. I cannot remember the list in order of other stuff, but I think it's like t-shirts, tote bags. I mean, this is after vinyl, obviously. Vinyl would be number one, but vinyl is quite expensive to produce. So, in terms of things that are not that expensive to produce, also depending on your market, some people do really well selling CDs, weirdly, still. But I would say start with, if you haven't done it before, start with something really small that's not going to cost you any money if you haven't got much money. Or another thing you can do, this is what Sub Pop do that I think is really cool, is they will create a mock-up of a product. So let's say it's a t-shirt they want to produce or a beanie they want to produce. They will put that on pre-order, and depending on the demand, they will then make that thing. So they know they've got the money in the bank already from people who have pre-ordered it. As long as you're clear about the timeline for when this product's going to be available, they will get that money in the bank before they make anything, and then they will start making it. And so if you are skint and you don't want to put yourself at risk, you can do that. Or you can use print on demand services where they will just create whatever has been ordered and you don't have to put in any money up front. But I would definitely say if you're not selling merch and you want to, if one of your goals is earning money, which is not the case for everybody, but if you want to earn money back on a release, start trying to sell merch.
Yeah. Yeah. And usually, I think most people don't really care as much if they have to wait a little bit longer for stuff, right? Like, I've ordered so many T-shirts and then forgot about them, and then 2 months later, all of a sudden, surprise! You have a brand new T-shirt that you forgot about, right?
Yes, there are, I would say, Chris, um, Bandcamp tried to do vinyl on demand and it was unbelievably hard, and that project is on pause. SoundCloud are about to start trying to do it. Good luck to them. I don't know how well that's going to go. Might work. Spotify, I don't know how that's going for them. But there are services that specialize in that. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're in England, you could probably find people who are still willing to, cut you a dumb plate if you really want to do a small run. But I would say, the time to start doing vinyl is when there's quite a lot of demand already for your music. It's just so expensive to, if you want to make any money on it, vinyl on demand is not the way to make money on vinyl.
No,
The
no.
margins are too low.
Yeah.
But if you have got a bit of an audience, definitely start trying to do some vinyl. It's just time consuming.
Um, Final question. This is a good one. Have you had a favorite campaign you have worked on or seen previously? Like, what is like an excellent campaign in your eyes?
My whole time at Accidental was my favorite. They were all my favorite.
Yeah.
I loved working with Matthew Herbert on those campaigns. He would tell you he doesn't like marketing at all, but I think he's a marketing genius. And I think that is kind of where you want to sit as an artist, where you're like, I hate marketing. Instead, I'm going to do all of these really interesting artistic things. Like, yeah, good, thank you. And so we did this one project. Well, I would say One Pig was probably my favorite, which is a long time ago, but he made an album out of the life cycle of a pig who had been bred for slaughter.
Yeah.
And he was grappling with the idea of eating meat in a way that feels not very conscious and you're not very connected to it. So he took samples from the entire life of this pig and documented it. He had a blog, there were amazing press shots, and then at the end turned this pig who had been bred for slaughter into all of these amazing kind of artifacts, essentially. There was a sty harp where you could play it and it would trigger samples, and it was just fascinating. There were chefs involved, there was cooking on the stage, blah, blah, blah. And to me, Peter were furious. To me, when you build an interesting campaign around each project, it frees you up to change and grow as an artist. And I love that, because so many people feel like, oh no, I want to do something different. Should I change my name? Should I, no, just make it so that you build the world around each project. People expect that from you. They give you the space to do that and to keep changing and growing as an artist. And that is essentially your identity. I think that's a really, maybe not for everybody, but I learned so much from this guy who was super anti-marketing about how to do interesting, authentic marketing for artists.
Nice. Cool. I think I went to see that at Mutech. They did
Ooh,
a
probably.
performance at Mutech, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like cooking at the end of the show. There's like you can smell like the bacon and stuff. And it's crazy.
It's wild.
Really crazy. Yeah. So amazing project.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know you were, and you were involved in that. I didn't realize that.
Probably in the album credits.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry. That's nice. Amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, so many like little practical tidbits, bigger picture views. So much to think about. I'm going to process this for a little bit because I definitely need to up my marketing game a little bit as well. And I think for many people here, just really good to sort of hear how to sort of bring a little bit of structure, I guess, into your projects. And not be afraid to try things. So I want to thank you so much, Amelia, for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed it.
Such a nice time. Thank you.
Good.
I would come back anytime. I really enjoyed this. You're a
You
lovely
would come
bunch.
back? Nice.
Yeah,
I'm
of
gonna
course I
keep
would.
I'm gonna keep you to that.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like between you all, there seems to be a really nice energy, and I love the chat you've got going in the comments. It's great. So
Cool.
thank you very much, and I will be wishing you all luck.
I'm gonna save all the goals, and then in 6 months we'll come back and we'll read them out
Great,
So- and
great.
see where we're at. So
If you didn't make them, think about what you learned, because it's even more valuable.
exactly. Yeah, thank you so much. So glad we could finally get this done. And we'll obviously speak soon. And yeah, let's have you back sometime.
I'd love
sure.
to.
All
Thank
right.
you all.
Thanks so
Take
much,
care.
guys. All right. Have a good
Bye.
one. Bye.